Hello, dear readers of my book ABC of Truth and the viewers of my channel. Today, I'll tell you about America. I will show you once again how it is necessary to assess the situation using the knowledge about Rus, which I gave you before, to make a conclusion giving inexorable evidence that tears the Inquisition history. The story that was put in your head turned you into obedient mancards, people that don't have their will, put you into a matrix that doesn't allow your thoughts to turn right or left or get another way. I repeat, before you watch another movie, you must watch and understand all my previous films. It makes no sense to watch my films out of order, you won't understand anything. I'm not an alternativist, and I cannot give you a version of an alternative history. I have the technique and knowledge of my ancestors, whose astrophysics cannot be refuted. Today you will see again what the so-called Masons are hiding from you, who are forced to hide and lie not only to our people, but also to their own people, where they live. For these creatures, only their well-being is important. They lie, because the truth will destroy all their pseudo-so-called orders, the truth that will destroy their world and tell about the real, genuine Rus. Let's start with the dollar and the supposedly US signet, allegedly, since the signet has one side, not two. On the left side of the dollar we will see the inscriptions. On the first level, one of the 13th, the date, 1776, in Roman numerals, the year of the independence. The inscription approved the undertakings, and this is interpreted as He, God, approved our undertakings. And the inscription Novus Order Seclorum, the new order of ages. We see a pyramid with an all-seeing eye. We already know that this is a sunrise in the Neva perspective, from the spire of the Admiralty, parallel to which Kazan Cathedral stands in the same direction. Think for yourself. If they drew the truth, then an elementary checking of the point of sunrise on the horizon would lead to the Nevsky perspective in March the 1st, and the opposite circle of the Indian summer in the cult of Ra would tell about the Indian summer. Can you imagine what a collapse would be? The collapse of all the Masonic orders and churches. Let's continue. On the right side of the dollar you will see that the eagle holds in the beak a scroll with an inscription of 13 letters in Latin. Ye pluribus unum, which translates as of many one. The cult of Ra, 13 stars in the constellation, 13 leaves the constellations, 13 castes of the constellation, and 13 geokais. This topic is described in detail in previous films. I do not repeat. 13 items on the dollar are certainly not the original states. The eagle's head is turned towards the olive branch, which means a greater preference for peace rather than war. In 1894, Howard Dorset brought to the State Department an authentic bronze great signet received from the nephew of George Washington. So, on this signet the eagle was Russian, not the American eagle. The arrows were on the left side, the rufus, and the branch on the right was the Leco caper. We recall the definitions told in the film about tombstones, and we can understand that the modern signet is a remake. The head of eagle is still turned in the direction of the arrows, which means a greater preference for war than peace. The scroll, with an inscription of 13 letters in Latin, Ye pluribus unum, which translates as of many one, no longer weighs freely in its beak, but drags its mouth over the bird. The whole story of the USA is the most perverted nonsense of everything that exists in the world, saving the symbols of knowledge of Russia. They wrote a story for them, so the Inquisition did the same around all the world. Next, let's talk about the name of this country, America. Here you can just laugh yourself off when reading the official story. I read you literally. America is apparently named for Amerigo Vespucci, a Florentine traveler. He was baptized in honor of Saint Emeric. Saint Emeric is the Hungarian saint Imre, who was supposedly the second son of King Istvan and the only one who lived to adulthood. There are two versions about the origin of the name of this Imre. First one, Imre was named after one of his uncles, the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, Henry II the Holy. So Imre is the Hungarian version of the name Henry. According to another version, Imre is a Hungarian version of the German name Emeric. I don't even want to comment this nonsense of a crazy inquisition. To make up such a nonsense, it seems presumably two versions, and everywhere there are different names. This is the definition of a thymus cross, a round square, for idiots. The Chronicle of the Whole World by Marcin Belsky of 1554, handwritten in Russian in 1584, contains the word America as the name of the great island discovered for himself during a trip by a certain Spanish man, Albericus Vespucius, which is nicknamed by the name of the great island Eric. That is, not the island was named after the person, but the person was named after the name of the island. About Eric, who he is, and individual aspects of the Russian language, the combination of vowel with the consonant, I told about that. So read it. He is still devoured in the sacrament rite by the modern Christians. The readers of my book are trained how all Russian words are deciphered by Latki word. The word la-la-ki. Well, you are all sober people. The folklore expression "discover America" often means telling everyone known and obvious information. Well, they lie to you. There is a good reason to believe that the continent was named after the English philanthropist Richard America of Brisfield, who financed the second transatlantic expedition of John Cabot in 1497, and he was given a name from the name of the island. In 371 BC, America was discovered by the Phoenicians as a country of purple, an ancient state located on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, with its center in the modern Lebanon, in the 6th century by Saint Brendan, Irish monk, in the 12th century by Madoc ap Owain Gwynedd, the Welsh prince, in 1331 by Abu Bakr II, Sultan of Mali, in 1398 by Henry Sinclair de St. Clair, Earl of Orkney, in 1421 by Zheng He, Chinese researcher, in 1472 by Joan Cortrell, Portuguese. There is evidence that at least from the 12th century, America has been known to the Knights Templar. And this is official sources. 12th century. Remember when Eric was eaten? It's okay. Now I'll show you the official version, what this country was called before the destructive, good, organized Eric's eating. Well, think for yourself when looking at the map, where the country of the rising sun. Yar Pon-ni-ya is located in its right side. How can you name the country that is in its left side? Yes, the country of the setting sun. How can you call her Russian with Latki? In the 5th century, Hui Shen, a famous Taiwanese Buddhist monk, made a trip to the country Fusan. Remember on the ancient Russian gravestones there is the same Latka Fu, and Latka-san in the real name of St. Peter, country Fusan. And what do you know about the flags of the states of America? What were the states? United and Confederate. You all know the US flag. But what do you know about the Confederate flag? Do you see a huge resemblance to the flag of Russia? And what did 13 stars mean in the springs of the Apostle Andrew? For those who persistently continue to watch a movie without assimilating the previous material, I will stop. Your worldview perceived the astrophysical device as a Christian gallows. And what it really is, and how Christianity was substituted, well, you had to know it before watching this movie. There are a lot of such moments that you just do not understand. You won't understand a lot of things, like the 13 stars or the flag of the Confederation. In your matrix, these are the 13,000 colonial Confederate States of America that have raised the civil resistance to the rest of the United States. What a shame to these people, the phrase of dissonant delirium which does not see the substitution of history. The colonists raised popular resistance, and this is the official story of a great country. Idiots! What the Inquisition has done to people not only here, complete degradation. Now, let's talk about the chronology. In 1492-1504, 4 expeditions of Christopher Columbus to the shores of America. 1499, Amerigo Vespucci was in the Amazon Delta, explored most of the coasts of South America. From 1501 to 1504, he participated in expeditions to America. In 1507, the cartographer Waldseemüller proposed that open lands should be named America after the New World's explorer Amerigo Vespucci. 1619, in the territory of modern USA was organized the first representative body in Virginia, the General Assembly of 13 English colonies. What have you been doing for 100 years? You were killing Indians for 100 years? Indians who built Russian fortresses on their lands? Too long. What did the United States hide under the confession of the sin, the killing of the Indians? Why it was necessary to say that they took the territories from the Indians and not from anyone else? Of course, somebody can wake up and demand his own back. It's better to confess of the killing of the Indians. Oh, what I've done. So interesting. 13 colonies. Or maybe nevertheless colony, Russian word. Showing awesome. Again, they perverted the truth. How is inside your brain about this? How do we speak it out loud? Ka or ko? And what rules did Lomonosov invent? And for what? Okay, let's continue. In 1774, the 12 of 13 colonies organized the First Continental Congress, which issued the Declaration of Rights and Complaints, which contained a statement about the rights of the American colonies for life, freedom and property. That is the way out of slavery. An ultimatum. 1776, the Second Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence and the decision to prepare for the creation of the Confederation. Articles of the Confederation and Perpetual Union. This is the first constitutional document, supposedly, from the United States. 1776, 1787, War of Independence, colonists won. This war the colonists will turn upside down in history. From the former colonists who rebelled against slavery for freedom, they will be turned into colonists who driven all the slaves into the colonies. People in the United States deliberately degraded by the educational system like us, they can only perceive comic book pictures. This is how they perceive this picture of a substituted consciousness. Colonies from the word colony, which means they organized these colonies. The people are debilitated by comics no less than our people. So, using the hype word, you can turn everything upside down, throw it into people, and the herd will turn again to their feeders. It happens very often. People think that after the revolution, completely different will take the power. It happened here too. The power of the Confederates demonstratively steals the future U.S. Democratic Party, the Constitutional Convention. I repeat, the Democratic Party, which means defiantly stealing. 1787. The Constitutional Convention betrays the Confederation, makes up the U.S. Constitution against the Articles of the Confederation, and launches the new American Congress, which has nothing common in ideology with those who accepted the Declaration of Independence, gaining freedom. Although the first popular president, George Washington, was elected, the slavery returned. The president was a nominal doll of nation. The new Congress did everything they wanted. Does the situation remind you of anything? This snake capitalist ball can never be unleashed without a deep global economic crisis. What panic should be in order to provoke a deep crisis? Indeed, in a small crisis, they will simply print candy wrappers and again shut mouth of the corrupt slaves. After all, the main thing is that they do not worry and stay home. Next. Eventually, 1828-1836. In the U.S., Alexandria was one of the large slavery markets in the country. More than 1,000 slaves were sent from here annually to work on the Mississippi and New Orleans plantations. They have been suffering for more than 70 years, but for some time people have found something to do. 1812-1815, the English-American War was invented out of blue. From the party of the war hawks. The war was declared the Second War of Independence. With this background, the remnants of the Confederation that were hiding in the Indian tribes were killed. Many Indian tribes were simply destroyed for helping the Confederate cowboys. The cinematic version that the Indians fought with cowboys is another lie. Finally, 1861-1865, the Civil War, the Confederate States of America. On the basis of the Articles of the Confederation of 1776, the exception of the Constitution of the United States. In the official history, there is a civil war in the USA between the supposedly union of 20 non-slave states, 4 border slave states of the North, on the one hand, and the Confederation of 11 slave states, on the other hand. Of course, this is a big lie. The modern United States rewrote their history, arrogating to itself the abolition of serfdom. The Confederate States of America have never been the slave one. We have already figured out the word colonists, what it really means, former colonists of England. Initially, the Confederates, from the date the revolution began in 1774, proclaimed freedom from slavery. It was this idea that made the revolution, getting rid of the oppression of England. The Confederates no longer imported Negroes. Decipher for yourself. The clue, it wasn't a growl from Africa, but it was actively done by the Masons Democrats. Of the important blacks and traitors, the United States colored forces were formed and were paid and promised to sign free. They were called like that, fickle bodies, colored troops. It was colored troops who died for the sake of the real exploiters of slaves, standing on the side of the Inquisition, earning some pennies, selling for money, and not figuring out who really was on the side of freedom and social equality. This is absolutely the same project as the Vlasovs, who fought against the Soviets by shooting at our grandfathers. Dumb, zombied, and salt traitors, and they really hate them not for their skin color, but for this act which destroyed social justice. The same cattle people like everywhere else, and all this is called democracy. Slaves were freed from slavery by the next formal people's president, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln killed the Confederation, a rebellious people against slavery. Having become the people's president, people who wanted freedom, but for the sake of his personal hype, supposedly he received the status of a national hero. Lincoln was a Republican and inherently carried the ideas of a confederation. A stupid politician who did everything at the wrong time, who betrayed the Confederates. It was not necessary to give freedom to the slaves in the USA, being the US president, in order to defeat the ones who deserved it by right, long proclaimed freedom in 1776 at the Second Continental Congress, accepted the Declaration of Independence and the decision to prepare the creation of the Confederation of States. Lincoln just betrayed everyone. The Inquisition simply had to publicly announce the abolition of serfdom around the world. Everyone was scared. That is why serfdom in England and Russia was abolished. It was in 1861 that the Confederates rose. Everyone was afraid that Rus would revive. Everyone was afraid that we would get up, sweep away the Inquisition and revive the state of Rus, of the popular partnership and social equality throughout the planet. Do you remember what the SRs were? The Socialist Revolutionary Party, which was part of the Second International. And look at their emblem. Read the background information about them for yourself. These are the people who have preserved the ideology of Rus until the present time. Russia will become Rus in the ideological and real sense only when we will have a real socialist party. Not an imitation, but the real power. In the Republican Party of the United States, even now you can find a trace from that genuine America of Rus. This is the Whig Party, and even earlier, the anti-Masonic Party. Yeah. Accordingly, the Democratic Party were the Masons who erased and then appropriated the knowledge of Rus. The Whig Party also existed in England. Now, this is also a social democratic party. It's all mixed up. Let's now look at the great people of the United States. I say states without specifying whether they are united or confederate. George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. What do we have? Washington City and Lincoln Park. Let's figure it out. The city of Washington is the capital of the United States of America. The official name is the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is an independent territory that is not a part of any state. It was formed in 1790 by the Act of Residence and included the city of Georgetown, as well as the city of Alexandria, until 1846. The city of Washington was founded in 1791 and named after George Washington, the first American president of the Confederate, where Lincoln Park was later opened in honor of another president of the Republican. Well, in fact, he was a Confederate. What about Alexandria? Search on the internet how much Alexandrias were there in America, and not only there. And how about St. Peter's? Yeah, there are many substitutions here. A great country with a great substituted history. How many collapsed lofty ideas and substituted concepts? How many people's grief behind all this deception? The impotence of George Washington and the political tragedy of Abraham Lincoln. Let's look at the names of these presidents. Washington. wash. In the Vedas history, it's the Vedas of the land of radiance, the tribal tower, Kula tower. Look it up in the books, Kula tower and the Toa tower. All together, the culture is Kula or that Ra. Appeal, U, is the family cultural tower of the sort with the big letter Sh at the top of the tower. There comes the expression ancestral roof. All of you are Slavic jigs from words get out of the family in Russian grammar, who poke each other, whose teacher, who instilled this in your hand, lives in Israel. I repeat, in Russia there was a word in Young Doctrine of Words. Christian priests used this word and came up with a Slavic sect, glorifying Young. It was Christian priests who opened the Slavic academies after the Romanovsky Cop and the baptism of Russia. Enoch, formed from the ancient In, the original sun, the ancient Russian name of the monk. We are talking about the appropriate hon after graduating from the University of Russia. Tone, the principle of the fret or its sound altitude position, designation, one of the visible qualities of the surface of the form, along with the texture and color, behavior, character, lifestyle. Fold yourself together now. Wash Enoch Ton, your monk Ton in Russia. This was the man, the keeper of the patrimonial knowledge of Russia, such as Yerek, Jesus. Only now they didn't eat him this time, they didn't hang him on the cross, but using the declaration of their independence for his own purposes, put him like a doll on the throne of the presidency. All the same substitutional technologies, only without death. Now let's look at the name of Lincoln. Everything is very simple here, the line of stakes. Col, Russian word, means stake. The most tragic and controversial figure in the United States politics. The traitor, the egoist who, as a Republican, destroyed the Confederate popular uprising, promising freedom to the United States black people. By this act, he already automatically ceased to be a Republican, defaming himself. Stake lines. What is it? Lines of stakes, Ra, lines of Colorado. Remember the square in the Vatican? I talked about the visual calendar and about the holy gates, gate of death, gate of good and evil, gate of Philaret, gate of the sacraments, such a mission that he had on earth, Colorado, only not for the people but for himself as a politician, tearing off his mission. Tell me, how you can get the last name in life? How is that really what you call a ship? That way it will sail. Vibrational magic teaching words Young In. ABC in the mouth of the canon. Slavism was deliberately perverted into slavism so that you could not manage your future life. Your subconscious mind no longer hears the true meaning of the words. The universe does not perceive the intonational vibrational energies of your words, Young In. I wrote you the main words of your life in the afterword to my book. Life moves backward from the accumulated memory. Think about it. Think often about it. Remember these words and learn to manage your life. You probably miss astrophysics. You probably, as always, want irrefutable astrophysical evidence. Probably, if there were astrophysical objects of Russia in America, then those who sympathized the Confederates would probably name these objects in honor of the personalities of their Confederates. And their names were astrophysicals. So, let me see. So, Washington, District of Columbia. We open the Sankalk program, the capital, Capitol. Showing the number of lines. We check the streets. We check the streets. March the 20th. 9 pieces. Sunrise in East Capitol Street. Red Hill, Pascha. It is clear that strictly east. We put pascas on the rise and passing lines indicate the foundation of the future temple. January the 14th, 288 Sagittarius, sunrise in Pennsylvania. Avenue SE article, appointment of those responsible for the holidays and planned events, writing their portraits, icons, images of canons, analysis of the past year, clarification of laws, norms and rules in various fields of activity and human life. Pennsylvania, pencil of sculpting, Vayania, Russian word sculpting, means the power of sculpting. May 22nd, 9 Taurus, sunrise in Maryland Avenue NE on the same day, sunset in Pennsylvania Avenue SE, commemoration of Christopher. Who is Christo for? A pointer to good luck. To know the for the head, to have the nose like a dog. Horse health, the eye like an eagle. It's all about Christo for. Christo means beer, for a word added to the name of rails, sails and rigging for good luck, located above the Mars or the foremast. Fora or handicap is an initial advantage. Fora is a bed of luck. Maryland, measure the landscape, to count. Insert this holiday of good luck in the calendar of the Rus. Look and explore the icons for yourself. Understand that this is just a symbol of good luck. The White House. Why? White. May the 9th, 23 areas. Sunrise in New York Avenue, NW. Sunset Pennsylvania Avenue, NW. Presents. Parenthood. Memorial Day and petition of the ancestors of the clan. February the 6th. 19 Capricorn. Sunrise in Pennsylvania Avenue, NW. Sunset in the end of a short street, vague petition. Middle of the winter in Russia. So here's the White House. 2 petitions in May and February. That's what you need to do in this house and not engage in any intrigues. Lincoln Park, Stake Line Park, sunrise January the 14th, 28 Sagittarius, sunrise in Massachusetts Avenue SE, sunset in North Carolina Avenue NE. We talked about that in the article. Sunrise May 22nd, 9 Taurus, sunrise in North Carolina Avenue NE, sunset May the 21st, Massachusetts Avenue SE, St. Christopher Commemoration Day. Strictly North, Tennessee Avenue NE, South Kentucky Avenue SE, and here you have the line of stakes. So what was the first, park or man? Life is moving backward from the accumulated memory, backward from the developed people. Very interesting information. So the astrophysical Washington without obscurantism, it is clear that Washington was built by the same Russian culture as Jerusalem, Rome and Athens. You watched a movie about it. Here you have the guardians of Russia, the Confederation. It is now clear why the Democrats are shaken just hearing the word Russian. These people are shaking people who use cattle people using orange technology. These gentlemen parasites derail their own country first. Here's what was said in the declaration at the beginning of the Articles of the Confederation, developed in 1777. The designated states each individually enter into strong friendly alliances for the purpose of each other joint defense, protection of their freedoms and general welfare. They unite with each other in order to render mutual assistance against any foreign forces or attacks directed against all at once or against each of them individually, hiding behind the religion, sovereignty, or anything else. Yeah. Have you heard the attitude to the religion and political Democrats? This is the official story. What stood there before the 13 colonies of England before the destructor good came to these lands? What administrative division of rules made based on this number of Kulra constellations, which the Confederates proudly wore on their flag? Not colonies, since 12 declared independence and not all 13. separated states, so it was much later than 1776, and on the dollar, 13. Now let's reflect. Why the word state was invented for the goyim, if in the English language it sounds like stat? Let's take a look at one of the words in Latke words. To stand, a stand, not a tripod but the stand, to tell correctly the pedestal, finally the article, statya in Russian. And what words were familiar to you when the independence was announced? Well, the Articles of the Confederation. Remember 1776? So, all the same, what administrative division was not really there? Was it invented? But what was there on Rus before the colonies and states? Look at the people had in these states governors. Oh, how wonderful it would be! Confederate provinces of Fusan. Let's analyze. Gub, Yer, Na, Tur. In Russia it means governor. Guba, a sea bay or bay that protrudes far into the land, a bay of a water body. There is a sea, lake and river part, Guba. The fortresses of the stars tried to build like that behind the Guba. Well, I wrote about that. Yer, knowledge management. The steering keel is like that. I also wrote about that. Tor or toroid. In geometry, it's one of the types of the surface in elementary geometry obtained by rotation. The shape resembles an inflatable lifebuoy or bagel. That is, the governor is a kind of helmsman on land who has the knowledge of managing the arc of the rescue operation in case of emergency. Remember what I wrote about saving fortresses of the stars of Russia? Or Rus. I have a whole film about this on my channel. So that's why there are fortresses of the star Rus on the territory of Fusan. You say, governors, the Democrats are close to come to the end. Is the governor the helmsman? What is the philosophy of life? What's this? Doesn't your heart tell you anything? Remember the details of the gravestones of Russia. Spicer. Remember the right Dura, Leko Keper. Open the vocabularies and read what privateering is. Do not delve into the details. About this I will make a separate film someday. But there is no truth to be found. Well, now let's get to the climax. According to the US Constitution, Congress has the power to issue certificates for privateering and reprisals, and to establish rules for the seizure of trophies on land and on water. Now you understand who stole this constitution in fact. The province or gubernia in Russia, the fortress of the star, the governor, helmsman, privateer. So who are the cowboys, cattle drivers, the shepherds? How does the official history represent it to you? And what does the sheriff's badge remind you of? Star of Russia? So the cowboys are still property called pirates, the number of eternities of the creation of the team of the fortress of the star and its arc of the ship. Let's see where there are some star fortresses in Fusan or America. New Mexico, Fort Union National.
New York, Fort J.
New York, Fort J.
Florida.
Florida.
Fort Zachary Taylor Key West.
Fort Zachary Taylor Key West.
Petersburg.
St. Petersburg.
Fort Dade.
Fort Dade.
Не Петер, а Питер.
Not Peter, but Peter. Or did Peter build a city there?
Fort
Monroe. Fort Jefferson.
St. Augustine, Castillo
St. Augustine, Castillo de San Marcos.
Fort Knox.
Maine, Fort Knox.
Fort Gorges.
Fort Gorges.
Michigan, Fort Detroit.
Michigan, Fort Detroit.
Mackinac.
Fort Mackinac.
Maryland.
Fort Henry.
Fort Castle Clinton.
Manhattan, Fort Castle Clinton.
Тикондерога,
New York, Ticonderoga.
Уильям Генри,
Fort William Henry.
Пенсильвания, Форт Дюкин,
Pennsylvania, Fort Duquesne.
Бразилия,
Brazil,
Санта-Крус,
Fort Santa Cruz.
Уругвай,
Uruguay,
Форт Санта-Тереза,
Fort Santa Teresa.
Куба, 4
Cuba,
штуки.
4 units.
Этих фортов очень много.
There are
не
many
буду
forts,
перечислять все.
and I will not list everyone. Explore that for yourself. In addition to the cities with astrophysical calendars,
Принадлежат все крепости-звезды.
all the stars' fortresses belong to the culture of Rus. You already know this for sure. Hamsmel, privateers, and the pirates of Russia organized and implemented the emergency plan for the salvation of the mankind.
Пи-ра-т.
P-Ra-T,
Вечного творения. Вспомните, как
the number of the eternal creation.
боялись эту Русь.
Remember how the good destructive Angles were afraid of this Rus. The Inquisition, which imposed fictitious religions, destroyed everything. Our task today is to restore everything. This is our culture, this is our land. Turn the movie on again. Now the information will fall into your mind in a completely different way. Look carefully at the clothing of the warring parties. Pirate hat Kulera on a saber going into the battle with the yelling "Ura" will change a lot into your worldview. Feather on a hat, Rus in the name of the Pan. Remember the textbook, Rimpera. Have a good reviewing, goosebumps and tears. Put likes and help me to share this film. Download it. You can put this film on the American resources. Send it to your friends in America. Victory would be for the social confederation of knowledge of Russia. The Inquisition will be exposed. After the reviewing, please follow the link to my spouse channel and subscribe. Nana plans to release films in her own specialty, and this is not a popular psychology, but a medical one. The difference is really great. Clinical psychology truly cures souls and bodies. I think in the future you will be very interested in it. May the good come to all your family.